Welcome back, Shop Rats. Today, we're back on the 2012 Dodge Ram Hemi truck. Remember in a recent episode, I mentioned we were having issues with the transmission. Well, I've done a lot of research and I've done a lot of checking things out and talking to people. And, well, I think we got issues, but maybe today we got some tissues. I don't know. Don't go away. We're going to get into it. I'm Mike.
This is My Cars Shop.
If you saw the episode where I was doing the recap on the trip from pulling that trailer about 1,200 miles, and we were having some issues with shift problems, and our gas mileage was pretty poor and so forth. I had mentioned a chip that was supposed to plug into the OBD2 port that would increase the gas mileage and change the shift points and increase horsepower by about 60 horse if you got a stage 3 chip. Well, of course, I don't spend money on anything without digging into it, and I won't mention the company because I can't remember it more than anything. But as I dug into it, I found out that that is pretty much a scam. Um, I'll just leave it at that. So I won't get into the point of that because that's not what this episode is about. But if you're looking at anything to plug into your OBD2 port, that's a little chip thing that's supposed to increase your horsepower and gas mileage. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It was about a $90 unit. So anyway, but I dug further into options on how to uh, decrease shift busyness, increase horsepower, and increase fuel mileage. And that led down a deep, dark rabbit hole. I'm still looking at one unit that would go on the dash, and it's a programmable interface. My son had one on a Subaru that he had, and my brother-in-law has one on his GM Diesel, and they both really like those units, but they're about $800. And quite frankly, I don't have $800 right now. So the further down the rabbit hole I went, the more I realized that there was a lot of uh, misinformation. And I thought, if I want the answers, I just need to go to the answer man. Some of you guys know that back in the day, I was a Chrysler mechanic and I used to rebuild automatic transmissions. Back in my day, I mostly did the front wheel drive A604 transmission. If you're familiar with that, that was the one that was puking before it even came off of the car hauler. And we got the bugs worked out and sorted out, and I rebuilt hundreds of those transmissions back in the day. But I really have been out of that field now for a long time, but I have friends. And so I went to talk to my buddy Mike. He was a service manager and mechanic in the dealership, actually, where I used to work. We never worked there together, but we've known each other for about 30 years. And he knows all things Mopar. He worked in the dealerships for over 25 years. He worked on these transmissions. He's done a lot of work for me. He's my go-to guy. And so I thought, if I want to find out what the real issue is with this transmission, by the way, this either has the 65 RFE or the 66 RFE. I didn't take time to dig into it. I know that a lot of people said that these mega cab trucks were basically a 3/4 ton truck, but branded out as a half ton. So it doesn't matter because the issues can be the same. It's the basic problems that both transmissions have had. I'm guessing this is the 65 RFE transmission. I went and talked to my buddy Mike about it and explained what was happening and explained what I understood. He's very patient to listen to me blather on, but it gives him information as he listens to the story. So I was telling him about how we would be going along down the road at, let's say, 60 miles an hour, and we'd be turning 2,500 RPM, and you'd come to a spot where it would start to decrease in speed because you were going up a hill or there was a headwind, and it would go from 2,500 to 3,500 plus RPM, dump down 2 gears, and whoa, what? Instead of just coming down 1 gear, and then if that wasn't enough, going to the next one. And I was explaining what I had learned online, and he said, no, no, no. I said, well, let me go further with more information. I said, I also thought I should be able to manually shift it, but what I read online said that the transmission only considers what the driver is asking from the transmission, and it may or may or not comply. He said, no, that's not true either. If you put it in a gear, within reason, it should select the gear that you manually put it in. He said there's a known problem with the valve bodies on these transmissions that causes this to happen. So let's explain that in my feeble understanding of what he was saying. So what happens is the manual shifter, and this is basically a slapstick type shifter, not quite, but there's no mechanical linkage. It's all electronic, and part of there's solenoids and there's the valve body, and the computer controls the solenoids, but it doesn't necessarily control the valve body. And some of you guys are probably going to slay me for that. It doesn't matter because I know where the issue is and I'm going to explain that. So when you put it in a specific gear, the solenoids don't necessarily override the valve body because there's a problem with the valve bodies in these units. So Chrysler made the valve bodies out of aluminum, and apparently as they age, the valves in the valve body start to stick. So when you select a different gear or when it gets under a load where the solenoids, or excuse me, the valves in the valve body should move, they stick. And then like pressure builds up so much, and then that's why it dumps two gears, because all of a sudden it'll like boom, and it lets go because the throttle pressure got high enough that it required it to do that. And so the problem is in the valve body. So I said, okay, well, first of all, what about the transmission? Is there a problem? He said he's never seen that cause a transmission to blow, but it really is annoying when you're driving it. I said, well, what does it cost to get the transmission rebuilt? He says they don't generally do them. We have a guy locally that does, but it's a crapshoot as to whether or not it takes care of this problem, and that runs like $2,000. He said he usually puts a Jasper in them, which is about $3,800, and I'm assuming that's just for the transmission, not including labor. So after I, pick my jaw up off the floor, which everything's so expensive, it's no surprise. I said, those come with a 7-year, 70,000 mile or 7-year, 100,000 mile warranty or something. So it's the way to go if I have to put a tranny in it. But he said, with this problem on this transmission, he said he's not seen a transmission fail. It's just not, uh, it's not fun to drive and it's not behaving properly. So then, of course, my next question naturally was, well, what does it cost to put a valve body in it? And he said, oh, they're about $800. Just for a valve body? Cheaper to build race cars. He said it's probably not worth it. He says his recommendation to people, for the most part, is just live with it. However, there is something you can do that does help a lot of times. How long it will last, how long it will help, that's going to depend. So I got a package over there and I'm over here. So let me go over there and get that package, and we'll open it up and show you what's inside, and we'll show you what we're going to do. Sorry, Colleen, I put the box cutter down somewhere instead of hanging it back on the nail, and I can't find it. So I'm going to use a knife to open the box. I would rather use the box cutter. It's much safer and makes y'all a whole lot less nervous, and I know that. So what we have here is some Seafoam Trans Tune. And what Mike said is dump a couple bottles of this in there and give it 100 miles or so, and you should start to see a difference in the way the transmission shifts. So we're going to do that and see how it goes. By the way, I've been slowly digging around in the warehouse. This is an extra dark duster dashboard, and as people have been looking for parts, I've been starting to sell off some things. So if you're looking for something specific, mostly for Mopar stuff, especially A-body stuff, I've got a lot. And slowly I'm going to start selling off all the spares and things that I don't need. So if you're looking for something, shoot me an email. My email's in the description of the video, and I'll see if I can help you out. One of the questions that one of the things that Mike said too is that like doing a fluid and filter change doesn't make any difference on this issue. Because it's mechanical parts that are causing the issue that are sticking, and fluid and filter is not going to solve that. So, and he did say, just go ahead and add a couple bottles of this. Don't worry about the transmission fluid level. That it doesn't matter that much. It's not going to hurt anything. And so I am going to start it for the next one just to be sure that we don't overfill the pan and without the pump circulating. So let me do that real quick. We're going to take this for a short drive to let that stuff circulate through, make sure everything is copacetic and not so pathetic. I was driving it yesterday. I went over and decided to put some real gas in it, because that was another concern that I have is, most of the gas we get today is 10% ethanol. And I thought, I want to put some non-ethanol gas in it. I wanted to put some like 93 or 91 octane, 100% no ethanol gasoline into it. And they didn't have it at the gas station where I normally go. I forgot that. So I just put 89 in it. And the truck does run better with it for sure. Alcohol is slower burning, so you don't get quite the power out of it. And better for the environment, but not necessarily better for the car, in my opinion. But anyway, as I was on my way back from the gas station, I was actually going down the road I'm going to turn on here, which is a typical path for me with most cars because it's real smooth. And I was playing with manual shifting, and I thought, I've never noticed it before because I rarely manually shift it. But it was doing the same thing, only not as exaggerated because I didn't have a 10,000-pound trailer on the back. So I'm just going to run it through the gears. We'll see what it does. I've noticed in this vehicle since I've had it, there's some stuff like this that goes on with certain shifting and accelerating, and I've been starting. I thought that was a drivability thing with the engine, but I'm really starting to wonder if it was valves in the transmission that were causing that. So I don't know. We'll see on that one, but I'm just gonna run her through the gears here. So we're in 6th gear right now. It manually shifted to 5. It didn't do that yesterday. It manually shifted to 4. It didn't do that yesterday. It just manually shifted to 3. Shifted to 4. Shifted to 5. And back to 6. So, I don't know. I know it's supposed to take a while for this stuff to work through, but I promise you, it didn't do that yesterday. But, here's another thing that I do know about what I noticed on the trip also is it seemed like the hotter it got. After we drove for 3 hours or so, it seemed like the problem got worse. And that kind of makes some sense to me, knowing that the valve body is aluminum. Okay, I'm just letting it shift by itself. It's shifting a little different. I can't believe it made that difference that fast, but I drive this truck every day, and I'm telling you, something is going differently in the transmission. It feels better. So anyway, as the transmission, I did check temperature a couple times, and it wasn't overheating or anything, but it was well over 200 degrees on trans temperature. And it did make me wonder, after I talked to Mike, was, okay, aluminum, I wonder if that aluminum is swelling up and causing that problem to be worse also. So I don't know, lots of things to make you wonder. Feeling a little of that stuff in there right now. All right, I'm going to drive a little bit. I'll be back. So typical Mopar transmission, I was running it right to the floor, and trying the different shifting and so forth. And when I would go past the point of where the throttle valve, loosely because it's all electronic, was requiring the transmission to be, let's say it was 4th gear and we're revving at 5,500, 6,000 RPM, and I would shift it to the next gear, it wouldn't shift because we were still accelerating. A typical 727 or a 904 transmission, an old school automatic transmission, would be the same way. So that's not necessarily an indicator of anything, but I just was curious. But I feel like right now, it doesn't go into 6th a whole lot anyway, but I'm bouncing back and forth between 4th and 5th, and it is shifting. It's not as fast as I would like, but it is shifting. So I think it's a little bit better, but I haven't manually shifted it a lot anyway to know exactly how it acts. But I'm at 58 miles an hour right now. I just put it in 6th gear, and it's not shifting into 6. Let up on the gas a little bit. It's because I'm cruising along at 60 at 1600 RPM. So I think it's just not going to let it happen because of the balance. If I was going 70, it would go into sixth. And I think that's fairly normal. Another thing that Mike had mentioned was there is a program that can be run, if I remember right. You can program the shift, the shift points in the transmission to function more like it has a shift kit. So I may look into that and talk to him more about that as well. And of course, if I did decide to go with the aftermarket control unit on the dash, that plugs into the OBD port, OBD2 port. And for those that don't know, OBD is onboard diagnostic. 2 is the second generation of that. That OBD stuff was coming out right around the time I left the dealership back in the 90s. And it's a universal diagnostic port that the SAE, the Society of Automotive Engineers, decided to do to help standardize a bunch of testing and so forth in the automotive industry for mechanics particularly. Anyway, I didn't take time to pick Mike's brain because he was really busy, but I'm curious to know more about um, doing that shift kit thing. Um, so I don't know. I'll look into that a little bit more too. It's not a physical. It's just a reprogramming of the transmission controller to change the shift points in the transmission, and it functions just like an old school shift kit, like we have in Scoops and some of the other cars that where it just shifts harder and the shift points are raised just a little bit. That may help some of these issues as well. Well, that's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you going with me down this rabbit hole. My channel is always about spending the day here in the shop, and the regulars know that, but some of you are new, and I like to talk about the dailies. We've worked on the Mini Coopers and some of the other cars too, but even though we're all muscle cars and hot rods and antique cars, when we have an issue like this, I like to bring it up because I mean, face it, everybody here has a daily driver, right? And so if I can share something that can help you with an issue that you're having, that's a win-win. So spread the word about the channel, like, share, subscribe. We do muscle cars, we do paint work, we do engine building, fabrication, you name it, we do all of it. And we're just here 3 days a week, turning out episodes on Friday, Sunday, and on Tuesdays. All right, we will catch you on the next one.
You didn't think I forgot, did you?
Rock!